The sound of his daughter's scream shattered the stillness of the mansion like a knife through glass. David Grayson froze at the doorway, the grocery bag slipping from his trembling hands. His heart thundered as the echo of that scream, sharp, terrified, desperate, ripped through the air again. He ran, stumbling over the marble floor, his polished shoes thudding heavily against the tiles. Every step felt heavier than the last. "Lily! Sweetheart," he shouted, his voice cracking with fear. He had just returned from a business trip overseas, exhausted but excited to surprise his 8-year-old daughter. He had imagined her tiny feet rushing toward him, her arms flinging around his neck. Instead, he was met with the sound of pure terror. The scream came from upstairs, from Lily's room. David burst through the door, his chest heaving, and then he stopped dead. The sight before him knocked the air from his lungs. Lily was crouched in a corner, sobbing uncontrollably. Her tiny frame trembled, her hair tangled, her hands shielding her face, and standing over her, clutching a belt, was his housekeeper, Maria, her face twisted in rage. For a moment, the world spun. The successful businessman, the man who could negotiate million-dollar deals without blinking, suddenly couldn't move. His brain refused to understand what his eyes were seeing. "Maria," he shouted, his voice shaking. "What the hell are you doing?" The woman froze, the belt slipping from her hand. Sir, it's not what it looks like," she stammered, panic flashing in her eyes. She broke your mother's vase. I just wanted to teach her a lesson." David's face turned pale, then red. He rushed to Lily, gathering her in his arms as she sobbed against his chest. "It's okay, baby, it's okay. Daddy's here," he whispered, his voice breaking. He looked up at Maria with fury that made her step back. "Get out. Get out of my house. Now." Maria hesitated for a second, then, realizing the gravity of what she'd done, ran out of the room, muttering excuses through her tears. David held his daughter tighter. "Did she hurt you?" he whispered, pulling back to look at her tear-streaked face. She nodded weakly, and that simple gesture shattered something deep inside him. He had left Lily in the care of others, believing money could buy safety, that comfort equaled love. And now, he saw the truth in her frightened eyes. All the toys, the expensive clothes, the big house, they meant nothing. She needed him. Hours later, after the police had taken Maria away and the chaos had settled, David sat on the edge of Lily's bed. She was asleep now, her little fingers clutching his shirt even in her dreams. He gently brushed a strand of hair from her face and sighed that he couldn't shake the image, the belt raised, the fear in her eyes. It kept replaying like a nightmare that refused to end. The next morning, David sat in his study, staring at the framed photos on his desk. In most of them, he was smiling at business events, shaking hands, wearing tailored suits. There were only 2 photos of Lily, both taken by the nanny. He realized he couldn't even remember the last time he'd tucked her into bed himself. He whispered to himself, "What kind of father am I?" That afternoon, he canceled all his upcoming meetings, sent an email to his company's board, effective immediately, "I'm taking an indefinite leave of absence. Family comes first." He didn't know what he was going to do next, but he knew what he wouldn't do: let his daughter grow up believing that love was something you could buy. Days turned into weeks. David and Lily began spending every day together. They baked cookies, even if half of them came out burnt. They painted messy rainbows on the walls of her playroom. They went to the park, where Lily held his hand tightly every time a dog barked, still afraid, still healing. Each time she flinched, guilt twisted inside him. But he stayed. Every day, he showed her that he wasn't going anywhere. One evening, while sitting by the fireplace, Lily suddenly said, "Daddy, are you going to work again soon?" He hesitated, looking at her. "Do you want me to?" She shook her head. "No. I like when you're home. It feels warm." That word, warm, hit him like a knife. For years, his mansion had been cold, sterile, full of noise but empty of life. Now, with Lily's laughter echoing through the halls, it finally felt like a home. Months later, David quietly established a foundation in Lily's name, the Safe Haven Project, dedicated to protecting children from abuse and providing them with loving homes. He used his wealth not to build taller buildings, but to mend smaller hearts. That he began visiting shelters, talking to kids, donating resources, but most importantly, he listened. Every story reminded him of how close he had come to losing his daughter, not to death, but to neglect. One night, as he tucked Lily into bed, she said softly, "Daddy, I'm not scared anymore." He smiled, brushing a kiss on her forehead. "That's because you're brave, sweetheart." She grinned sleepily. "No, Daddy. It's because you're here now." Tears welled in his eyes as he turned off the light. Standing at the doorway, he looked back at his daughter, the reason his life had meaning again, and whispered to himself, "I spent years trying to be a successful man. But tonight, I finally became a father." Outside, the city skyline glittered with the lights of success he once chased so fiercely. But David Grayson no longer cared about the numbers on his bank account. The only treasure he needed was asleep upstairs, safe, loved, and finally smiling in her dreams, and for the first time in years, so was he.